A standoff at a Delaware state prison came to a deadly end earlier today. Correction officer Stephen Floyd was killed when inmates decided to take hostages.
Officials say they negotiated with inmates for nearly 15 hours before finally making the decision to storm the prison.
Throughout this ordeal, there were many stall tactics. As I said, they used it against us to get the water turned on, which ultimately we thought was going to be for hygiene and for them to hydrate, and they used it to create the barricades against us. The stalling was to build those barricades. So once we realized that's what was happening, and we knew we had one hostage we believed was still alive because there was some communication to verify that, and we had another hostage, Sergeant Lloyd, that we had no contact with, we had no updates on, and we were very concerned. So at that point, we made a commitment to enter.
Well, CBS News national correspondent Chip Reid is outside the prison in Smyrna, Delaware. So, Chip, what is happening at the prison right now?
Well, they tell us they're processing the crime scene, and it could be a long process. They said they're going to go through every cell looking for evidence. And one interesting thing that they told us is that they consider every single inmate who's in that C building to have been a possible suspect, even though it seems clear that some of the inmates were taken hostage by some of the inmates, but they don't want to say anybody is innocent or guilty of anything until they've completely processed that scene.
Chip, any sense from officials, do they know how these inmates were able to take over the prison?
We don't have much information on that, but when we asked them about weapons, they said that they did have sharp instruments. Now, if they had had knives, I think they would have said knives. So the guessing is that, and I think it's pretty good guessing, good educated speculation, that they probably had homemade shivs, as they call them in prison, sharp objects that were filed down from perhaps pieces of metal or pieces of whatever they could find. One other interesting thing, it was alluded to in that soundbite you just heard, that what they did in order to try to keep the tactical team from breaking in was they took metal footlockers and they filled them with water to make them heavy, and then they stacked them up and created a wall at the entrance to the area where the hostage taking had occurred to try to keep the tactical team out. And they couldn't find a breaching vehicle to get through, so the rescuers used a backhoe, a piece of construction equipment, to knock down that wall and to get in there when they finally stormed the building.
And Chip, what do we know about the officer who was killed?
Well, they were pretty tight-lipped about that. We do know that Stephen Floyd was a 16-year veteran, and I have talked to a couple of guards here, and they say that he did have a family. He had children.
So sad. Our Chip Reid on the ground there. Chip, keep us posted. We'll follow up with you later in the afternoon, hopefully. Thank you, Chip.
You bet.